Hello and welcome to your yoga class today. My name is Jenny. This is a core and restore class. You might want to gather a few props if you like to practice with props. One thing that I always have is my trusty block. I've actually got two of those. Well, I only have one, but a substitute that you can use is a rolled up mat. You also may want to grab blankets, bolsters, cushions. Anything that may help support. We will use, I'll give ways to use blocks and other props throughout our flow practice, and then as we get into the restorative practice, it's just sometimes nice to have a little extra support. So I'll kind of be guiding you through ways to use props, but if you don't have much going on at home, that's totally fine. But blankets, pillows, cushions, a stack of books can work as a substitute for a block. But it's yogi's choice if you want to utilize any props through your practice. So take a moment to gather those and then we will get started. So as you feel ready, just find a comfortable seated position. And take some time to really settle in. Find a solid connection down to the sits bones. And then use that connection to kind of square through the hips, make a nice solid base, and then lengthen up through the crown of the head. So we're sitting nice and tall. And then find some softness in the shoulders, a little softening in the face, so that we're sitting with integrity, but we're not stiff or rigid. And if it feels good, you can close the eyes. Just start to draw that awareness inward. Starting to observe the breath, starting to explore the body, and starting to just kind of take stock, gathering information about what's going on for you right now. How are you feeling physically, energetically, emotionally? As we continue to check in, just start to find a little more depth to your breath. That may occur naturally as you start to bring awareness to the breath, but we want to bring a little more intention to our breathing. So as much as you can, work to breathe in and out of the nose. And then we want to work with deep belly breathing, so sending that breath all the way down to the bottom of the lungs, allowing the belly to press out, which allows the diaphragm to lower and creates more space for the lungs to expand and gives you a nice little Buddha belly. And on the exhale, drawing that belly in towards the spine, up towards the heart, helping to lift the diaphragm and press that air out. So we want to use the full capacity of the lungs with each breath. Starting to notice any effect in the body or in the mind of these deep belly breaths. And you can play a little bit more with the connection to your breath if you'd like to bring in Ujjayi breathing. So finding that activation of the muscles in the back of the throat, creating kind of that sound. Just gives the breath a nice audible quality, something for the mind to tune into. That activation also helps to kick in our parasympathetic nervous system, helping us to find a little more ease and calmness in the body and in the mind. Continue to connect to the breath, to explore the body. And all of this information that we're gathering right now is just so that we can meet ourselves where we are. We're not trying to react or respond to any of this information. We're simply taking it in and using it as a baseline. Because our bodies, our minds, they're in constant motion, constantly changing. And so we never want to force anything. We never want to try to fit ourselves into the mold of yoga. Yoga will always mold to us. Since our bodies are continuing to shift and change even throughout our practice, we want to continue to check in so that we are honoring ourselves, honoring our body. And know that as we start to move through our physical practice, everything that I say is simply a suggestion. I try to offer safe guidelines for you to move through your practice, but you have the freedom to explore. If something doesn't feel right or accessible in your body, feel free to explore any of the options that I give or creating ones of your own. One of my goals as a teacher is to empower you, to give you enough tools in your toolbox to where you can move through any yoga practice safely and honoring yourself, regardless of what is being taught, so that you can develop your own personal relationship with yoga in a safe and sustainable way. So listen to the body. The nervous system tells us if we've gone too far, if we're on the verge of injury. So keep checking in, keep practicing that mindfulness, the awareness of the body. And then we'll start to just bring in some simple movements, linking it to the breath. So as you feel ready, just release the arms down alongside the body. Maybe sitting up just a little bit taller. And then on the inhale, send the arms out to the side. Just start to raise them up towards the sky, just as high as they come. And then exhale, we'll just turn the palms down, start to release the arms back down alongside the body. We'll just take a few more rounds like that at your own pace. Inhale, reaching the arms out and up, finding length in the side body, continuing to soften in the shoulders. And exhale, bring the arms back down. Excellent work. One more like that. Inhale, arms out and up. And exhale, release them down. Awesome work. Now we'll plant the right hand, maybe walk the fingers away. The hand can also come to a block or a bolster, and then we'll inhale to swim that left arm up and over, finding a nice side stretch. If you want a little bit more, you can start to lower down towards the elbow, but really just stay in tune with how this feels. We're getting a nice stretch in the side body. You may get a little activation in the low back. Breathing into that space you're creating, maybe finding a little movement in the neck, in the head, or you can release the head down, opening up through the left side of the neck. As you feel ready, we'll inhale to come back up through center, releasing the left arm down, and then we'll just repeat on the other side. So walking the hands away. Again, the hand could plant on the ground or maybe raises up onto a block or bolster, and then we reach that right arm up and over. Sits bones, hips are grounded, so notice if you start to lift in the booty or lift in the knee, those stay connected to the ground. So don't worry about how far you're arching over, just find that sensation in the body. Pause when you feel that sensation in the side stretch and just feel into that. Awesome work. Just one more round of breath here. And we'll inhale to come back up through center, releasing both arms down. And we'll just start to come forward towards hands and knees. So take your time to get there, however you'd like to make that transition. Moving any props that you may be sitting on or that may have been in your way. And set this up with some integrity. So the knees are underneath the hips or maybe a little bit wider, depending on what feels better for you. You can also pad the knees. You can double up on the mat, kneel on a blanket. Nice way to give the knees a little ease. And then we'll point the toes, press into the tops of the feet so the legs are nice and active. Spreading out through the hands, find a good position for the hands that feels right. Maybe they're shoulder distance, maybe they're a little wider, maybe they're a little more narrow. Check in with the wrists. Notice if having the wrists directly under the shoulders is too much. You can walk them forward, you can play with the angle, and then just start to find some movement here. So moving through the spine, moving through the torso, maybe some cat-cow, working through spinal flexion. You could take some circles, you can kind of snake the spine around. You could bring in some forward and back motions, just moving through the body in whatever way feels good. Bring in some movement in the wrists, the shoulders, the hips, the knees, the spine. wrap up your exploration here, we'll send the hips back, coming into a child's pose. Arms extend out, the head lowers down. It's okay if it doesn't touch the ground. If it doesn't feel awesome to have the hips all the way back towards the heels, you can keep them raised as the chest lowers down into more of a puppy pose. Just one more deep round of breath here, expanding through the back side of the body. And on the exhale, release any expectations of yourself, of your body, of this practice. On your next inhale, we'll come back up through tabletop. We'll start to activate in the core with a little bear pose. So reestablish your connection to your tabletop, but this time we're going to prop the toes. Engage in the core, belly draws in and up, ribs hug in, lengthening through the spine. We're pressing the ground away. There's a lift in the back of the heart. And then we're going to slowly start to hover the knees, rooting back through the heels. Continue to lengthen through the spine, out through the crown of the head. Almost like we're kind of spring-loading ourselves, ready to jump forward. You might start to feel some activation in the legs and engagement in the core. Fantastic work. From here, we're going to kind of spring-load ourselves forward into plank pose, straightening through the arms, shoulders come forward. And then exhale, rebend, send the hips back through bear pose. Awesome work, building up some strength here. Inhale, come forward through plank. And exhale, rebend, knees hover, tailbone lengthens. Beautiful work. One more, inhale, come forward through plank. Exhale, come back through bear. Fantastic work. This round, as we come forward through plank, we're going to lower all the way down to the belly. You're welcome to lower the knees. Take your time. Find activation. And then as we come all the way down to the belly, hands connect to the ground. Lengthen through the spine. Press into the tops of the feet. Inhale, 3 rounds of cobra. Raise the head and chest up just as high as feels okay. And exhale, lower down. 2 more like that. Inhale, raise up. We're lengthening through the spine as we work the back bend. And exhale, lower down. Last one. Inhale, lift up. And exhale, lower. Beautiful work. This round, we're going to press back up through our tabletop. And we'll take another child's pose, your choice if knees stay in line with hips or if you want to take knees out wide, big toes to touch in a wide leg child's pose. A few rounds of breath here. Connecting to the breath, connecting to the body. Noticing where your attention goes. And if the attention starts to wander, just bring it back to the breath. Awesome work. As you feel ready, we'll come back up through tabletop. If the knees were wide, bring them back underneath the hips. Prop the toes. We're getting ready for our first downward dog. Find that connection to the hands, but we're going to come through bear pose. So once again, lifting the knees, lengthening through the spine, engaging in the core, and then just nice and slow, continue to lift the hips up towards the sky. Head comes between the biceps, chest shifts back towards the thighs, and as we find our first downward dog, feel free to explore here. Maybe a little pedaling through the feet, maybe a bending and straightening of the legs. You could shake the head yes or no, just really take some time to feel into this down dog. One of my favorite new things to do in down dog is to kind of shake it out, just kind of bounce the heels, kind of just let it shake. And at any time you can come down and take a child's pose. We'll take just a few more rounds of breath here. Really connecting to the hands as you lengthen through the arms, through the spine, letting the hips be the high point of our pyramid here, or our inverted V. Awesome work. Now, as you feel ready, we're going to root down towards the left heel. Inhale, start to extend the right leg up. Doesn't matter how high it's coming. Find length, find activation. So toes are flexed or pointed, inner thigh is engaged, lifting from the right hamstring, right glute. Awesome work. Nice deep inhale. Exhale, bend the knee, heel towards the glute, and then the knee starts to lift up towards the sky, coming into scorpion. A few rounds of breath here. Maybe you circle through the leg or kick it out, whatever feels right here. Check in with the shoulders. You want the shoulders pretty squared, so notice if you dip into the left shoulder. Fantastic work. Inhale, re-extend through that leg, square through the hips. Exhale, shift forward through plank, knee towards nose, and we'll step the foot between the hand. Take your time to get there. You can lower the back knee down. You can physically lift that foot and place it there. Lowering the back knee all the way down, coming into a low crescent lunge. Blocks can be a nice thing here to bring the ground closer. Just kind of feel into this, maybe a little slight shifting forward and back. Getting that nice opening in the hips, stretch through that hip flexor. Find your breath. Fantastic. And when you're ready for a nice counter stretch, we'll just send the hips back as we straighten through that front leg. Again, blocks can come in handy here to bring the ground closer. Coming into a half split, so the front toes point up towards the sky, or you can play with pointing and flexing through the toe. Feeling into that stretch in the back of the leg. Awesome. As you feel ready, we'll start to rebend in that front knee, planting that right foot. Hands find the ground or blocks. We'll prop the back toe, lift the back knee, if that feels okay. Inhale, lift the gaze, send the chest forward. And then exhale, we're gonna kind of launch off that back foot and step it forward to our forward fold. When you're in your forward fold, inhale to a half lift, find length through the spine. And then exhale, fold it in, let it all hang out. Take a few rounds of breath here. Check in with the feet. Maybe it feels better to bring them closer together. Maybe it feels better to take them more wide. And take a few rounds of breath, maybe pedaling through the feet, shaking the head, yes or no. You can bend the knees and then raise the hips to kind of feel into the hamstrings a bit. Just a few exploratory rounds of breath. Awesome work. On your next inhale, we'll raise to a half lift. Find that extension, get a little blood flow going back to the brain. Nice deep inhale to lengthen, core engaged. Exhale, fold forward. And then inhale, bend the knees, send the hips back. We're coming up into chair pose. So maybe the arms raise forward. They can raise up, they can come into goal post. They could rest at the hips. And your choice how deep your chair is. Maybe it's just a little micro bend. You're working with that length in the spine. So find the chair that works for you right in this moment. Core is engaged, belly drawing in. Awesome work. This is kind of like our bear pose, just standing. So kind of this similar body shape, but different activation. Fantastic work. On your next inhale, we're coming up to standing in mountain pose. So reaching the arms up, and exhale, dive it forward. All the way down. Inhale, half lift, find that length in the spine. Exhale, fold it in. We'll plant the hands on the ground, and we'll step the feet back. Coming into our plank pose. Find engagement here. Know that in plank, you can always lower the knees down into half plank, still engaging in the core. You can even come into our tabletop plank. We're still engaging core here if this feels best. So find whatever version of plank feels awesome for you. If you have issues with the wrists, you're welcome to come down onto the forearms. We're gonna do a little bit of leg work here while engaging the core. So you can stay in plank pose. This is a challenge. This is building up strength. This is definitely a challenge. If you want a little bit more, inhale, raise the right foot up. Step it out to the right, just a little tap, and bring it back. And then switch it out. Left foot raises, taps out to the left, and comes back. Repeat there. If the knees are on the ground, you can still tap that foot out and bring it back in. Switch it out to the left and back in. Awesome work. Explore through a few more rounds. Finding a way to challenge yourself without pushing too far. Let's just take one more round each side. Fill in those arms, fill in that core. Awesome work. Coming back through plank, and on an exhale, lower all the way down to the belly. Fantastic work. 3 rounds of cobra. Inhale, raise up, press into the hands, but we're pressing down and back, so we can kind of bring that chest forward. Exhale, lower down. Inhale, lift up, shoulder blades draw together, opening up through the heart. Exhale, lower. Last round, again, just coming up as high as feels okay. Inhale, raise. Exhale, lower. Fantastic work. Your choice if you want to push back up through a plank pose, or if you want to come up through hands and knees. And from plank, we'll lower the knees, send the hips back, take a child's pose. We'll give the arms, a little break before we work through that flow on the other side. Connect to the breath. You're welcome to take a drink of water here. You can settle into child's pose or maybe find a little movement. About 3 more rounds of breath here. Might even feel good to just turn the palms up. Really let the shoulders release. Awesome work. As you feel ready, we'll come back up through our tabletop. So coming up through hands and knees. Take your time once again, set up your foundation, find the placement for the hands, placement for the knees. We're coming back through our bear pose. So as we prop the toes, lengthen through the spine, engage in the core. When you're ready, press the ground away, lifting through the back of the heart, root back through the heels as you hover the knees. There's a little separation of the sits bones as the tailbone lengthens back. Gaze towards the ground so that the neck is nice and neutral, belly drawing in. Awesome work. Now this round, we're just going to take it a step further in our bear pose if you'd like. We're going to circle the knees out and up, back through center and down. So it might look a little funky, that's okay. Embrace the awkwardness that is yoga. Awesome work. If you're taking that option, just reverse. So there'll be a little lift of the knees, then we'll take them out wide, drop them down and back through center. Whew, that is burning my quads. Take the movements nice and slow, moving from the core. Fantastic. Then when you're ready, lift the hips, shift the chest back. We're coming into downward dog. Take a few rounds of breath here, maybe pedaling through the feet. Listen to the body. Take a break at any point when you're ready. Inhale to start to raise that left foot up, rooting down to that left leg, right heel. Left leg is active and extending. Toes are pointed or flexed, inner thigh engaged, quad engaged. One more deep inhale to lengthen through the leg. Exhale, bend the knee, and knee lifts up, opening up through the hips, finding scorpion. If you want to take some movement in the leg here, feel free. Check in with the shoulders. Notice if you're dipping into that right shoulder, try to square them off. When you're ready, inhale, re-extend through the legs, square through the hips. Exhale, start to shift the weight forward, knee towards the nose, and we're stepping that foot between the hands. So you can take your time getting that foot there, even if you physically place it there. We're lowering the back knee down, finding our low crescent lunge. And blocks can come in handy here. The hands can come to the knee. Maybe there's a little forward and backward shifting. Just feel into this opening in the hips, that stretch in the right hip flexor. Connect to the breath. And as you feel ready, a little counter stretch with a half split. Here we'll start to straighten through that front leg. And blocks, the hands can come to blocks or towards the ground. With that left leg straight, the toes are either pointed up or you can point and flex. Kind of exploring that sensation. You can kind of play with how high the hips are raised. Maybe they're hovering, maybe they're all the way down at the heel. Just finding what works here. Nice stretch through the back of that left leg. And as you feel ready, rebending in that front knee, planting the foot. And then we're gonna raise that back knee up, coming through our full low lunge. Maybe taking a few moments here just to feel into that. If that's a little too intense, you can keep that back knee lowered down. And the hands could come to blocks or towards the ground. When you're ready, we'll inhale to send the chest forward, gaze lifts, and then we're kind of spring load off that back foot and step it forward to your forward fold. Awesome work. Inhale, half lift. Find extension, find length. Hands can come to the knee or to the thighs, to blocks, to shins for support, or they could hover for a little extra challenge. Maybe they are out in a T or biceps by the ears. One more deep inhale to lengthen, and exhale, release it all down into your forward fold. Take some exploratory rounds of breaths here, maybe pedaling through the feet. You could grab opposite elbows and sway side to side. And check in with the position of the legs. Find a solid foundation. As you feel ready, inhale to that half lift, lengthening through the spine, little blood flow back to the brain. Just one round of breath here. We'll take a deep inhale to lengthen. Exhale, lower back down, forward fold. And then inhale, come into chair pose. We're bending the knees, sending the hips back. Arms can come to the hips, to goal post, they can extend. And find whatever chair version works best for you this round. May not be the same as the last. Check in with how this feels in the knees. Maybe you want to take the feet a little wider, a little more narrow. Maybe you play with the angle of the feet. Our bodies are all built in many different ways. We have different variations. So no one alignment cue is going to fit every single body. So explore. Find what feels good. If you want a little extra challenge, maybe lower the hips just an inch lower. Ooh, yeah, feeling that burn. Awesome work. One more round of breath. On your next inhale, shoot up to extended mountain, reaching up towards the sky. And exhale, dive forward. All the way down, forward fold. Fantastic work. Inhale, half lift. And exhale, lower. Plant the hands. Step the feet back. Find whatever version of plank pose you'd like. Could be knees lifted, knees lowered, knees under hips. Lots of options, and all of the options we're lengthening through the spine. Core is engaged, belly drawing in, ribs hug in. We're pressing the ground away. We've got a lift in the back of the heart. Awesome work. You can stay here, building up strength and stamina? Yeah, that's how you say it. In your plank pose, whatever variation you're taking. If you want a little bit more, we're going to take slow down mountain climbers. So we're going to start by just bringing the right knee towards the nose, heel towards the glute, and exhale, step the foot back. Inhale, left knee towards nose, heel towards glute. Exhale, step back. Continue with this. Other options you can explore. If you're coming from plank, you can just lower the knee, tap it down, raise it back up. If you are in a half plank with the knees lowered, you can raise that knee up, or you could bring the knee forward. You can take this from your tabletop. Awesome work. Continue to breathe, engage in the core. This is our last really big push. Move slow with control. Awesome work. Take one more each side. When you're ready, coming back through plank, knees are lowered, and we're going to send it back to our child's pose. Again, your choice, knees in line with hips, or take the knees out wide. Fantastic. And it might feel good to turn the palms up, letting the shoulders roll out, releasing through the arms. As you feel ready, we'll come back up through our tabletop. If you'd like, feel free to take any movements here, maybe revisiting that kind of free flow movements. Maybe noticing the difference in the body from the first time we did this. Be a little more open, a little more warmed up. Maybe a little less snap, crackle, and pop, but maybe the same amount. Then whenever you're ready, we'll meet up in a seated position. We want to have some space back behind us to lie down, so maybe sitting in about the middle of the mat or so. We're going to play with boat pose for our last little bit of core. With boat, you want to keep a nice V shape with the body, nice extended spine, belly drawing in, ribs hug in, heart lifting. So with all of that engagement, you could just draw the knees in towards the chest, maybe just come up onto the toes. This could be your boat pose. This is a great way. My core is still engaged. I am building the muscles around the spine to lengthen. Other ways that you can play, maybe raising one foot at a time, maybe the toes just hover, maybe they come a little higher. Hands can be hanging on to the behind of the knees, or they could release. So whatever variation of boat you're playing with, find that length in the spine. Imagine a string drawing your heart up towards the sky. Fantastic work. Embrace any shaking in the body. Now, boat itself is challenging. If you want a little bit more, just if you want it, option for just a little more activity, we'll inhale to reach the arms up towards the sky. Exhale, take the hands over to the right as you extend through the left leg. Inhale, back up through center. Exhale, switch to the other side. Inhale, up through center. Exhale, twist and extend the opposite leg of where you're twisting. Inhale, up through center. Exhale, twist and extend. Inhale, back up through center. One more each side if you want it. Exhale, twist. Inhale, center. And exhale, twist. Inhale, back up through center. Hold this. Just 3 more rounds of breath. You got this. Arms extended, they could be out, they could come into cradle the knees. Fantastic work. One more deep inhale, and exhale, release it down. Fantastic work. My hip flexors always feel sore after that one, so one of my favorite counter stretches is cobbler's pose. So we'll bring the bottoms of the feet to touch, knees drop open. Now this is where a blanket or a little padding might come in handy, just getting a little lift in the booty, especially if you have tighter hips or tighter hamstrings. That just kind of helps get your pelvis in a little better positioning. And then we are going to take a forward fold, but you can adjust the intensity of the stretch with the positioning of the heels. The further away the heels are from the root, the more gentle it's going to be. The closer they are, the more intense you're going to feel. So what we're going to do, flip the palms up so we're not tempted at all to pull ourselves down. And then exhale, just start to round it out. Tuck the chin in towards the chest. Let the head fall forward. Knees are hanging open. And if this is a little too intense in the hip flexors, if gravity is just working a little too hard, you can slide blocks underneath the knees. That'll bring in a little support. And if you are hypermobile or just very open in the hips and you're not feeling much sensation here, it's because you don't need to work on building flexibility if you're hypermobile. You need to work on joint stability. So one thing that you can do if you're not feeling much here is press the feet together, lift the knees so they hover a little bit, just to bring in some more activation. That's going to build up those stabilizing muscles around the hip flexors to help protect those hypermobile joints. Continue to just release. If this is a little too much on the head, neck, and shoulders, you could also bring in a block or a blanket or cushion of some sort to rest the head. Some sort of configuration of props to be able to give yourself some support. Really allowing the shoulders to drop down, the scapulas to spread apart. And stay connected to the breath. Can be a little more challenging moving from, a little faster pace, flow-ish kind of movements to these more stillness, more settled poses. So continue to find your anchors, come back to the breath, observe the thoughts, check in with the body. There's a few more rounds of breath here. Check in with the low back. If you folded too far forward and your back's barking, just go ahead and back off a little bit. Listen and adjust. Beautiful work. As you feel ready, just nice and slow, start to make your way up and out of the pose. Go ahead and extend through the legs and shake them out if that would feel good. Or you could take some seated windshield wipers, maybe bending the knees and sending them side to side. Now we're just going to repeat that forward fold, but with the legs extended. So again, a little cushion under the booty might feel good here. So as you feel ready, we'll extend the legs out, but know that they don't have to be completely straight. You can have a generous bend in the knees, so much so that you could even just fold forward and let the chest rest on the thighs. You could also slide props underneath the knees for some support, a little cushion or your bolster as you come to your forward fold. If you do choose to have the legs extended, that can be a bit much on the kneecaps, so flex the toes back, which just creates some stability around the kneecaps. So set up your legs first, and then once again, we're gonna turn the palms up so that we're not resisted to pull ourselves down, and just kind of let this forward fold unfold. So just allowing the head to slowly tuck in towards the chest, allowing it to lower down. And again, you can bring in props for support. If you want to bring in, cushion and maybe a block to be able to rest the head. So we're not forcing anything here. We're just allowing our bodies to naturally stretch out, to allow gravity to kind of do some work here. And then we want to meet our bodies where they are. So when you start to feel that sensation, maybe in the hamstrings, in the low back, in the hips, pause and work with that. Don't try to force anything deeper. And as we continue to hold this forward fold, know that sometimes the longer we hold the poses, the more our body will release and open, and then we can move into that new space that we're creating. But sometimes that can take us a little too deep. So keep checking in. That nervous system will ping if we are getting too close to injury. So we want to continue to build a respectful relationship with our bodies. It's sometimes hard to love our bodies completely, to say, I love my body. That is a challenge for a lot of us. But what we should always try to embody is respecting our body. And part of that respect is by not pushing it so far that it creates injury, that it causes any harm in the body or in the mind. A few more rounds of breath. Breathing to the back side of the body, the back of the lungs. Let the back of the heart shine up towards the sky. Fantastic work. As you feel ready, nice and slow, we'll just start to walk the hands back and come up to a nice neutral spine. Lengthen up through the crown of the head, maybe bend the knees, grabbing onto the knees. You can take a few rounds of seated cat-cow, maybe working through some arching and rounding in the back. And when you feel ready, we're going to take it all the way down to the ground. So you can just lie back. You can take this into a little bit more of a core challenge by lying back nice and slow. You can round out. But when you get there, just take a moment here in this neutral spine. And bend the knees, maybe slowly start to draw the knees in towards the chest, bringing a little tuck through the tailbone, a little length through the low back. After we've kind of reset the spine in this neutral position, we'll counter our forward folds with a little back bending, playing with bridge pose. So you're welcome to take supported bridge. If you want that, have a prop of some sort handy. We'll walk the feet in towards the glutes. Legs are about hip distance. Press into all four corners of the feet. Lift through the toes, spread out through the toes, then send them back down so the feet are nice and active. Shin bones are pressing forward. And we'll take a little lift in the chest, kind of exaggerating the arch in the spine and tucking the shoulder blades underneath. So the hips and the shoulders are on the ground. We're lifting through the spine. And then with that activation in the feet, shins pressing forward, we'll inhale to start to lift the hips up to our bridge pose. If you want a more active bridge, you could stay here or maybe interlace the hands behind the low back, maybe tucking the shoulders a little bit more and staying up in your bridge. If you want to take this into a supported bridge, slide your block, bolster, cushion, rolled up blanket, stack of pillows, whatever you've got underneath the pelvis, so that you can relax the pelvis down. Still get this opening in the hip flexors, working with some back bending here. So we're getting a nice stretch through the front side of the body, a little stretch in the hip flexors. If you do want to maybe explore that sensation in the hip flexors a little bit more, if you're in your active pose without a prop, you could take it a little bit further, extending that leg up and then lowering it down, reaching the right leg out. If you're in your supported bridge, you can also extend that right leg out, just kind of noticing how that feels in the hip flexor, in the low back. It's going to exaggerate a little bit more in the back bend. So stay in tune with that. Awesome work. If you're taking the option with the extended leg, draw that right foot back. And then extend out through the left. If you're up in your active bridge, left leg extends up towards the sky and then lowers down to whatever level feels good for you. In the supported bridge, extending that left leg out along the ground, checking in with the back, checking in with the hip flexor. Awesome work. If that leg was extended, go ahead and draw it back. And now from here, we're going to take it into an inversion. So if you've got your supported bridge going here, then we're just going to lift the legs up with the hips raised. You can also do this with the hips flat on the ground, so you don't have to be in bridge pose to find this extension. You can also take full shoulder stance. So for those in bridge, if you want, you can lower down and take it however you like. Or you could bring the hands underneath the hips. Actually, that transition's not going to work. I think that's not going to be safe. So if you're up in full bridge, lower down, then lift the legs, lift the hips, bring the hands underneath the hips into full shoulder stance. There we go, that feels safer. So we're either in shoulder stance or supported shoulder stance, or just a reclined pike pose. The legs are up in the air. Maybe spread out through the toes. You could roll out through the wrists and ankles. You can kind of explore the feet. Maybe explore through the legs. Maybe you want to take some small circles, maybe some larger exploration movements. You could scissor the legs. You could open them up to the side. Really just looking to get the legs above the heart. A little different perspective here. Excellent work, about 5 or so more rounds of breath here. And then whenever you feel ready, just starting to lower the feet back down. If you do have a prop underneath you, solidly plant the feet. Find that lift in the chest so that you have some support, and then lift through the hips as you press into the feet. Remove the prop and slowly set it down. Feel free to take a few rounds of breath in this nice neutral spine, maybe walking the feet out and away from the glutes and taking some windshield wipers. And you could slowly start to draw the knees together and in towards the chest, finding a little length through the low back. And then when you feel ready, we're going to take a little bit of twisting, but we'll start with some windshield wipers. So planting the feet on the ground, a little bit wider than hip distance, and just let the knees kind of fall side to side. A windshield wiper action, releasing through the hips, through the low back. And then we'll take this into a twist. The most gentle option, you can just let the knees drop over towards the right. If you want to feel into that left hip flexor a little more, start to point the left knee towards the front right corner of your mat. So just kind of extending a little bit more through that leg. If you want a little bit more in the twist, you're welcome to maybe place the right ankle on top of the left knee to take the twist a little deeper, or take a different variation of a twist, different variation with the legs, one that you know feels right for you. Find your breath. Hands can be resting on the body. They could be out into a T or into a goalpost. Whenever you start to feel ready to switch it out, we'll bring the knees back up towards center. If you want to take a few rounds of windshield wipers to reset between sides, feel free. And then when you're ready, setting up your twist on the other side, letting the knees drop to the left. Maybe pointing that right knee towards the front left corner to get a little more sensation through that hip flexor and outer hip. You could gently cross that left ankle on top of the right knee if that feels okay. That sometimes doesn't feel awesome to put that kind of pressure on the knees. You can also use props in any way, or you could take a different version of a twist that feels good in the knees or in the back. Find the position for the arms. Stay connected to the breath. Continue to observe the thoughts as they come in without attaching to them. Just kind of get curious. whenever you feel complete in your twist on the other side, gently start to untwist through the spine. And maybe some windshield wipers, maybe drawing the knees in towards the chest. And then we'll start to make a transition into our Shavasana, or our final relaxation. But take some time, if there are any final poses, any final stretches, anything the body is asking for, any maybe little closing ritual you like to do to round out your practice. A little bonus yogi's choice here. And then no rush at all. Take as much time in this final exploration. And then as you feel ready, starting to settle into your final relaxation pose. Could be a traditional corpse pose on the back, toes turned out, palms turned up. Sometimes this doesn't feel awesome on the knees or on the low back, so one of my favorite use of props is sliding a bolster or a rolled up blanket or even two blocks underneath the knees. This takes some pressure off the knee joints, a little release in the low back. But if being on the back right now isn't suiting you, doesn't feel awesome, then switch it up. You could lie on the side, you could lie on your belly, you could come into a seated meditation, and you can use props to support you in any way that you'd like here. You can wrap up in a blanket, you could lay on the bolster, you could create a whole pillow heaven, as my nephew calls it. Whatever position for the arms works. A little more open and receptive would be palms turned up. If that's feeling a little exposed, or if you feel like you need a little more grounding, hands could come to the belly, one hand to the heart, one hand to the belly. You could even cross the arms over, grabbing on opposite elbows, biceps, or shoulders. And the idea in our Shavasana is to find a position to where we can surrender. Or we can allow all of the amazing work that we've just done to integrate into the mind and into the body. We can allow our breath to find its natural flow. Allow the body to release, to relax, to surrender. Allow the mind to either settle into the peace of the present, although sometimes peace of mind can be a little more of a struggle to attain. So if that peace is not there, then just simply observe the chaos, observe the thoughts, be curious about them without attaching. But ultimately, just take this moment that you've carved out for yourself and let yourself just be. those practicing at home, if you have more time to dedicate to your Shavasana, please do. Give yourself the gift of at least 5 more minutes, upwards of 20. As you feel ready, gently start to bring a little bit of movement back into the body. Slowly starting to wake the body back up. And if you're not already there, you'd like, just roll onto one side of the body. And pause here for a moment in a nurturing pose. In this nurturing pose, just offer yourself some gratitude for carving out this time, for rolling out your mat, for trusting yourself, for trusting me, for trusting your practice, for trusting in the magic of yoga. Give thanks. And whenever you feel ready, gently start to press your way back up to a comfortable seat. I'll invite you to bring the hands to heart center or take any other meaningful gesture with the hands. Thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of your day. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. I see you, I honor you, and I bow to you. Namaste.